With spring training on the horizon, you know I had to bring back the player prediction series. Today we'll be talking about the 10 players that I think who will regress from their 2024 form in 2025. In no way is this meant to come across as me hating any of the players on this list. This is purely a statistical analysis of these players and why I think they'll decline in 2025 without changes. And with that caveat out of the way, let's get into the video. The first player of the video is a bit of a layup in Connor Wong, who all things considered put up a solid season with the stick for a catcher. Defensively, probably shouldn't be a catcher, but that's a conversation for a different day. As an offensive first catcher, Wong posted a 758 OPS with 13 bombs and 52 RBIs. What Wong does incredibly well is leverage his swing to pull the ball. Playing into the Green Monster is a solid recipe for success and has mastered the efficiencies to his swing thus far. As time has gone on, Wong's physical numbers have been trending up, while his under the hood numbers have been stuck in reverse. Hard hit percentage down from 2023, sweet spot percentage down from 2023, barrel percentage is once again down from 2023. The only stat that has improved from 2023 was his strikeout rate, but even that is well below average. Wong's place in the league could be in jeopardy quickly if he doesn't turn around his underlying stats or find a spot in the field. Michael Lorenzen kicks off the pitching side of the list today after posting a solid season of 3.31 ERA type ball. He split time between the Rangers and Royals and really took on a different form in Kansas City. Lorenzen went on a spree where hits and home runs were incredibly tough for opponents to come by. Both statistics would be really hard to replicate based off where Lorenzen is at in his career, and while Kauffman Stadium will do its best to aid those numbers, Lorenzen's underlying stats are just really concerning. He's fine when it comes to the contact he does surrender, but really struggles to get strikeouts and limiting walks. That combination is a poor grouping for any pitcher and will likely lead to a significantly higher ERA in 2025. Luckily for Lorenzen, the Royals aren't counting on him repeating that same success after re signing him to just a $7 million deal to be a back end of the rotation sort of starter. So, for a Royals team that is carried largely by their pitching last season, it can still be a solid move, even if the production dips. David Peterson is the second pitcher to grace the list today after posting a really strong season for the Mets with a 2.9 ERA. What Peterson does incredibly well is getting a lot of the contact he surrenders onto the ground, which helps mitigate his less than stellar batted ball profile. Peterson gives up a lot of hard contact for someone sat with such a low ERA, but possibly even more concerning is that his strikeout rate dropped 6% in 2024, putting him down to 19.8. That combination with a relatively high walk rate is a recipe for disaster. If he can return that K rate to a solid old standing, keeps reducing the walk rate, and continues to put the ball on the ground, there's a world where he can still be a solid pitcher, but a 2.9 ERA is irreplicable. Tyler Stephenson of the Reds enjoyed a nice turnaround season in Cincinnati, posting a 782 OPS with 19 bombs from the catcher's spot. Stevenson actually does a lot of things well at the plate that give him a higher floor than some of the other players on this list. Stevenson has a relatively good eye, being in the upper half of batters in walk and chase rate. To go along with that, he actually hits the ball at a decent rate pretty hard. Pairing all of that with Great American Ballpark will only allow his offensive game to fall to a certain point. So that's why his game will be a lot closer to average in 2025 as opposed to being the above average hitter he was in 2024. Part of that ideology comes from the style of hitter he is. He is much more of a singles and doubles type hitter as opposed to a home run kind of guy. Most of his contact is on the ground up the middle, which should limit his power potential, but in 2024 he took advantage of Great American. 19 homers just feels a bit high for me, and while betting against Cincinnati's home field is fairly foolish, I'm taking the under on how many balls Stevenson's finds a seat with. Jose Berrios must have made a deal with the devil himself to continue to put up very respectable numbers across the last two seasons. During that span, his game from under the hood perspective has diminished greatly. In his current state, he is a pitcher who allows a ton of hard contact, doesn't miss bats, and doesn't get very much of that contact onto the ground. He does pretty well with the walks and living on the edge of the zone, which has provided him with a safety net, but there's only so long he can continue to produce as this good of a pitcher with these sort of advanced metrics. We all knew that when Trea Turner signed his massive deal in Philadelphia, it was one of those deals that might not age the best, considering his profile as a player and just how many years the deal was for. So far, the historic deal has been a decent investment for Philly, posting a 791 OPS across the two seasons with a 162 game average of 28 homers and 81 RBIs. but last year's success came in a much different way than what we were accustomed to with Trea Turner. He's still one of these pool happy ball lifters to get his home runs, but he didn't have the same kind of batted ball data as years prior. Barrel rate down, sweet spot percentage down, hard hit percentage down, walk rate down. A lot was down for Turner in 2024, and yet he still managed an 807 OPS with 21 homers. Another aspect of Turner's game that gets a bit overlooked is his high ground ball rate, which is complemented well by his blazing speed. However, 2024 was the first season we saw that speed start to slip up a little bit. Now, before I get too far, the 96th percentile of speed is still incredible, but for a player that has always been in the 99th or 100th percentile his entire career, it could be the start of a trend as he starts to enter his mid 30s. His speed wavering could play his ground ball heavy approach and cause a mass decline in his numbers. The second half of the argument is sort of a worst case scenario, I'm aware, mainly for later in his career, but his swing profile would say he massively overperformed anyway in 2024, and a stabilization should be expected. Another shortstop who enjoyed a nice season in 2024 was Ezequiel Tovar, but I'm not sure it's sustainable. Tovar does an incredible job in the field, is a good base runner, and playing in cores will always provide a nice cushion to his game. However, aside from his sweet spot percentage, the rest of his offensive game is less than stellar. He doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, and his swing tracking data doesn't love the right hander. He sits in the 39th percentile in bat speed and the 12th percentile in squared up percentage, so it should be difficult for him to find great results. He's another one of these pull the ball in the air types. His game does have a relatively high floor, so essentially any offensive value he can provide is kind of a bonus, but 26 homers does feel a bit high to me, and I don't think he'll be able to take that next step that many people are expecting. Ronel Blanco took a huge step forward for the Astros in 2024, posting a sub 3 ERA, tossed a no hitter, and finished with the ninth best pitch by run value in all of baseball. He gets a good amount of strikeouts and limits hard contact, so where could it all go wrong? Blanco, while he is able to avoid hard hit baseballs fairly well, he doesn't do the same when it comes to barrels. Blanco is incredible when he can live on the edge of the zone, finishing fourth in run value on the shadow portion of the zone, but doesn't have near the success when coming to the middle of the zone. When Blanco is forced into the zone, batters tend to crush the baseball, which paired with the high walk rate could cause devastating results. I'm not saying he will be a horrid pitcher, but a lot closer to average should be expected, especially for a pitcher with a low ground ball rate in Houston. The Detroit Tigers made a move for Gleyber Torres over the course of the offseason. It was a move that made sense on paper. After all, they needed a plus offensive right handed bat in the middle of that lineup, and second base is one of the weaker positions on the team, so the match seemed, well, seamless. However, my issue is with the player himself and his swing. Torres does do well with the strikeout rate and walk rate, and is fairly consistent with his sweet spot percentage being well above average. My fear for Torres is that moving from Yankee Stadium to Comerica Park will sap power from his swing. After all, he massively overperformed in the power department last year, even in an off year where he only hit 17 bombs. His X home runs was sat at 12, and the adjusted view for Comerica takes it a step lower to 9. Torres makes his name off being a offensive first second baseman with pop, and if that pop is taken away, it could leave the Tigers wishing they had allocated that money elsewhere. And the final player of the video is Brady Singer, who made his way from Kansas City to Cincinnati in exchange for Jonathan India early on in the offseason. Singer did well in his last season in KC with a 3.71 ERA across 31 games and even improved on his walk and K rate from 2023. Two major concerns arise from Singer's profile as a player, and the first of which is that he allows a ton of hard contact. A majority of that contact is on the ground, which helps mitigate the quality of contact, but to take that next step, the rest of his game would have to evolve around that ground ball rate. Which brings me to the next point where I have my doubts about a pitcher giving up that sort of contact making the move to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is easily one of the best parks to get offensive production from, and I don't like the pairing for the pitcher. A ground ball rate will still play, but it probably won't be as successful in reducing his overall numbers, and for that, I see Singer taking a step back in 2025. And that's going to do it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, there's no means to be hate towards any of these players. I don't wish that on any of these guys. I hope they make the necessary adjustments and continue to evolve as players. That's what baseball is all about at the end of the day. I'm just saying who I think will struggle a little bit coming up next season. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys for watching and have a wonderful day.